Hello viewers, welcome to Disease Reversal and Mitigation Studio. We are again grateful to God for granting us a blessed and a wonderful day, and also an opportunity to be able to share in another very important topic. And today we'll be looking at the diseases of Africa. They're also called diseases of malnutrition and poverty. And they are so called because these are the major two causes of these diseases. And this would mean that any multinational company or donor who has a genuine intention and love for Africans of eradicating these diseases, they have to begin with first by getting rid of poverty and malnutrition. But as long as they're maintaining, farming, and sustaining poverty, we will never have a true solution to these diseases. Now, we'll start by looking at what the Bible says about diseases of malnutrition and poverty. We'll be reading the book of Numbers, and I'll be giving you the slide right away. The book of Numbers, chapter 21 and verse 5. Please note that sanitation is a key health pillar, not only for Israelites, but also for Africans today. Now, let's see what the Bible says about the diseases of malnutrition and poverty. Chapter 21, verse 5 and verse 6 says, "And the people spake against God and against Moses, Wherefore have you brought us up out of Egypt to die in the wilderness? For there is no bread, neither is there any water, and our soul hates this light bread." Now, note, it was obvious there was starvation and drought in the wilderness because there was no water and there was no food. But God had provided means. He had provided medicine in form of the grain of heaven or manna. That was a vegetarian food, but they rejected it. And they not only rejected that food, they also rejected Moses and God himself. So what did God do? He withdrew the manna. You know, anytime humanity is at loggerheads with their maker, they are rebelling against God, they not only cause a crisis of themselves, they also disrupt the ecosystem, because the organisms that have been benefiting from the blessings will also be affected. And that is why in verse 6 we are told, "And the Lord sent fiery serpents." So if you read in Numbers chapter 21 verse 6, God did not send the fiery serpents, but the people created a situation where the fiery serpents had to come out of the rocks to look for food among the people. And because these were poisonous snakes, they ended up biting the people and causing death to so many Israelites. So the point here is, it is the devil who brought the poisonous snakes. And the devil was providing an alternative for the vegetarian food or the medicine of heaven they had rejected. And this is prophetic, because anytime the devil realizes that the people are starving and they are suffering from drought, instead of providing the actual medicine, he made the people to reject the medicine of heaven so that he can provide an alternative in snake poison. And this is happening today. But the multinationals and the big pharma note that Africans are suffering from diseases of malnutrition, poor sanitation, and poverty. Instead of dealing with the true causes by providing food and water, they provide poisonous drugs and poisonous inoculations, exactly as the devil did to the children of Israel. So there's nothing new under heaven Whatever happened in the past is also happening today. So God is very strict with sanitation. If you read in Leviticus 14, verse 8, we are told that he directed the people to keep clean by ensuring that their clothes were clean. So they were both clean in body, clothes, and also their camp was clean. So if you ignore sanitation, you're going to get diseases of poor sanitation. You'll be affected, your body will be affected both internally and externally. So God is very strict with sanitation. We also need to be strict to avoid diseases of poor sanitation. Now, I want to show you the leading infectious diseases in Africa. Let me post the slide for you so that you see that what we call the leading diseases of Africa, we have a list in order of prevalence, and these are also said to be the main causes of mortality among Africans, especially south of Sahara. Now, there are certain causative agents that are associated with these diseases, but those are just meant to distract attention to the true causes of these diseases. Pneumonia, to start with, is said to be caused by a bacteria that is naturally resident in the throat of a human being. So it's unlikely that a bacteria will be both symbiotic and pathogenic at the same time. But we know what causes pneumonia. We have fungal toxins, contaminants in the atmosphere that are inhaled and they end up causing pneumonia. So it all boils down to making the environment clean, both the atmosphere, the water, and the land. Then malaria is said to be caused by Plasmodium, which is carried by a vector and then transmitted to human beings. You should never be worried by microorganisms or infectious agents that you hear are crossing species, because they become weaker anytime they move from one species to another. But you see, for malaria, the bottom line is we have to ensure compounds are clean, draining any water puddles around the home area, and by so doing, you're going to get rid of the mosquitoes that could be breeding in those water puddles. Then for diarrheal diseases, you should have interacted with a dirty environment. You have compromised cleanliness, such as eating food that is contaminated with fecal matter. So that's how you get diarrheal diseases. So please do not get obsessed by which microorganisms caused which diarrhea. Just ensure that your compound and your food and your water is clean. Then for tuberculosis, you have heard that is associated with bacteria, but please note tuberculosis is a fungal illness that has to do with a dirty environment, overcrowded spaces, and also contaminated food and water. And that's how we get tuberculosis in the lungs and also in the rest of the systems in the body. So it can be ingested. You can ingest fungal toxins at the same time. You can inhale them in the atmosphere. Then for neonatal sepsis, these are the diseases of newborn. They have to do with poor sanitary environment of delivery. Then meningitis, again, as I said, the bacteria that causes meningitis, just as the one that causes pneumonia, is resident in the human throat. Humans are the only known natural reservoirs for these bacteria. So as I said, it's unlikely that a bacteria will be both symbiotic and pathogenic at the same time. That is not natural for genuine microorganisms. So for meningitis, we also need to be careful of overcrowded environments, congested spaces, and ensure that we are breathing fresh air, we are properly nourished, because it depends upon our immunity to clear fungal toxins and other contaminants in the atmosphere. So it all boils down to sanitation, good nutrition, and also fresh air. That is ensuring that we benefit from fresh air, good nutrition, and also clean water, both internally and externally. And you're going to get rid of these diseases of Africa that are said to cause many deaths. There's also another disease that is frequently diagnosed in hospitals today. It's called blood infection. What is blood infection? You go for a test of full hemogram, and then the WBCs are noted to be elevated, and you're given this diagnosis that you have a blood infection or a bacterial infection. But do you know what is causing this? It is caused by overuse of antibiotics. So there's something we call bacterial antimicrobial resistance. So because of abuse and overuse of antibiotics, we have very frequent infections. Are you aware that overuse of antibiotics will predispose you to more infections? Because you're using antibiotics for everything, including nothing, such as colds. You should never take antibiotics for colds. So unfortunately, it's the medical personnel that is dishing out these antibiotics. And could be the reason why we have this resistance or an outbreak of blood infections. Then other diseases of Africa are said to be the hemorrhagic fevers, but there's a lot of conspiracy theories by the scientists themselves concerning these fevers, such as of Ebola. So these ones have not been confirmed fully, but the most important thing is to ensure your environment is clean. And then you have neglected tropical diseases, such as those of parasitic origin. So there are diseases like sleeping sickness, that is trypanosomiasis, schistosomiasis, bilharzia, especially in where among those who get in contact with stagnant water when they are planting rice. And we also have leishmaniasis. Now, for all these parasitic diseases, there must be a vector that will carry the microorganism or infectious agent to be transmitted to man. So I said, please do not get worried by any microorganism that has to jump species before it gets to human. It becomes weaker each time. It undergoes genetic changes that will make it weaker as it moves from one species to another. But the bottom line is, ensure your compound is clean. Ensure that you're eating clean food, you're drinking clean water. And then we have STIs, UTIs. Those have to do with cleanliness. Ensure that your body is clean. Ensure that you have a very good immune system. And for AIDS, ensure that you are eating well. Have a balanced diet. So this will save you from all these diseases that are said to be causing mortalities in Africa. Now, do you know what are the risk or predisposing factors for the diseases of Africa? You get surprised. Now, have this slide and take note of the predisposing factors. Number one is environmental pollution. So if you pollute your land, pollute the air, and you pollute the water, you're predisposing yourself to diseases. Imagine the donors and other interested parties could have sorted the issue of pollution, but they are causing more pollution by giving us chemicals to spray weeds. We call them herbicides, pesticides, DDT. All these chemicals are coming to pollute our environment. Okay, they're also harvesting our trees, and this will cause to more pollution. They are inhabiting our space, taking land for conservancies and large-scale farming and this is leading to deforestation, pollution of the atmosphere. They are bringing in chemicals that are polluting our soil, and this is how we are getting these diseases. And then the other factor is poor sanitation. So we don't have access to clean water. So we are not able to clean ourselves, clean our clothes, clean our babies, and also clean the environment. And as we read in the Bible, is that God was very strict with cleanliness because it will lead to diseases. If you don't take adequate water to cleanse your system, you're prone to having accumulation of dead cells in your body. And dead cells are very good breeding ground for cancer and fungus. Okay. Then you also have malnutrition. It's a major cause of diseases in Africa. This is a major risk factor. But do you know that the multinationals and governments are not interested in getting rid of malnutrition? So they will continue pumping poisonous drugs into your bodies instead of providing you with food. Then poverty. Because people are poor, they cannot afford spacious land. They cannot afford spacious houses. They cannot afford balanced food because of poverty. So poverty is contributing to most of these diseases we have in Africa. So that is why we call them diseases of poverty and malnutrition. Then you have those who are living in crowded areas, in the slum areas that are poorly ventilated. They are living in those habitats. And because they do not walk for long distances, they have to work in the same slums. They are constantly interacting with fungal and contaminants, fungal toxins and contaminants in the atmosphere. Okay? We have poor disposal of waste, so they're interacting with defecation all the time. So they are also smelling a bad odor in the slum areas. And this is contributing to pneumonia and other diseases that we have listed. Then the same people have comorbidities. Because of malnutrition, they may have diabetes, hypertension, arthritis. They may have asthma because of polluted atmosphere. And these comorbidities set them up for more diseases in their vicinity. So you can see the vicious cycle of diseases. Then the same people, because of poverty, distress, chronic stress, they abuse substances. So you find in the same places they're abusing drugs such as heroin, cocaine, bang, alcohol. And the use of these drugs is damaging the immune system. So it is problem after problem. And then among the same slums, we have people of what we call extremes of age, such as the too young and the too old. So they are known to have low immunity. Because of low immunity, they will easily contract these diseases. And then among Africans south of Sahara, we have seasonal factors that contribute to spread of certain illnesses. For example, during the dry months, we have outbreaks of pulmonary diseases or respiratory diseases because the air is light and dissemination of fungal toxins and other contaminants is rife and easy, and therefore people inhale and they get pulmonary diseases. Wow, after facing these risk factors and getting these diseases, would you imagine that the big pharma will come with drugs instead of coming with food, instead of coming with clean water, instead of sensitizing the people on cleanliness, on finding fresh air, they provide drugs that do not address the main problem. So those drugs will only come to address the symptoms. Now, what are the challenges we are facing in Africa in terms of eradication of these diseases? Why are we finding it hard to eradicate these diseases? Now, I'll give you the reasons. One of the reasons why we are not able to eradicate these diseases is because we have not addressed the prevailing risk factors. And these are the risk factors such as malnutrition, poverty, famine, factors such as poor sanitation. Because the multinationals, the governments, the big pharma is not addressing these factors, then these diseases will remain. The big pharma have conflicting interests. So they want to keep the business of dishing out antibiotics going on. And therefore, do you think they're interested in getting rid of these diseases? Well, it's a lucrative industry. So they will not want to abandon the gravy train. So that is why they have attached fictitious causes to these diseases. So they will say they are caused by bacteria, but this is only meant to distract attention from the true causes. Then among the Africans, we have over-treatment and over-inoculations. So when we continue to treat symptoms instead of addressing causes, then these symptoms will keep on coming. And this will lead to over-treatment and over-inoculation. So whatever is being provided as remedy is not a true remedy. It is only meant to soothe the symptoms. We usually call it symptomatic management. And then, are you aware that we are going back to concentration camps? We thought that we are looking for space with the affordable housing, but the houses are congested, they have poor ventilation, and they are bringing people together. So when will you get fresh air? When will you go out to breathe when you are confined in small spaces? And in those affordable houses, there are restrictions. So you don't have free movement. And these restrictions will cause what we call stress and distress to the inhabitants of those houses. So this will lead to more diseases. And this is actually what is happening. Then we have land and food pollution. The modern methods of farming, such as application of fertilizers, chemicals such as pesticides, fungicides, and herbicides, they're destroying the land, they are polluting the food. We have genetically engineered food, which is poisonous to our immune system, is damaging our liver, is causing cancers. And we'll end up having all these diseases together with a very weak immune system, which, when we contract infectious diseases, is going to take us down. And truly, this land has been taken by multinational companies and also the globalists and the few who have money, and they are doing what we call commercial farming. So using chemicals to grow food, to produce food for sale. And this food is eventually being consumed by the poor who don't have enough space to grow their greens, to grow organic crops. So they will end up using this food, which is poisonous to their system. So eventually, they are going to get diseased from the very diseases we want to prevent. Okay, so that is exactly what is happening to Africans. Now, something else is environmental pollution. We have pollution of water from farm chemicals, from waste. Okay, that is why we have diarrhea from contaminated water. We also have air pollution, meaning we're inhaling contaminants and fungotoxins, and we are contracting pulmonary diseases. You can add chronic stress to these conditions, and it is going to add to the burden of disease. And then we have a lot of disinformation and propaganda, and mainly from the mainstream media, who are funded by the big pharma and the multinationals. Instead of sensitizing people the true cause of these diseases, such as malnutrition and poverty, they want to promote poisonous substances, drugs, inoculations to treat symptoms instead of addressing the real cause. And therefore, to get the true cause of, or to be able to address the diseases of Africa permanently, then we have to consider the following solutions. Solution number one is good nutrition. Okay? I remember I presented this video sometimes back, a few days ago. Please check the video on the 10 Commandments of Health from my YouTube channel, that is Disease Reversal and Mitigation. So those are the 10 health principles that you need to follow to get rid of these diseases of Africa. So this will start with nutrition, and then exercise, water, which has to be used internally and externally. So you have to drink adequate water to cleanse your body, and ensure personal hygiene, hygiene of your clothes and your person. Then you have space to get sunshine. You have to follow temperance, air, rest, trust in God, because this will give you peace of mind, earthing, and resonance. So I've discussed that in a video which I shared with you on the 10 Commandments of Health, which you can remember by the acronym, by the name New Starter. So when you study them, those are the true remedies for the African diseases, the diseases of poverty and malnutrition. Continue to like, share, and subscribe until we meet in the next presentation. Bye bye. God bless you.